Today is the day. Today is the day that I've been waiting for since launch and was first alluded to back in 1.3 Heinlein. Today, we're going to be talking about trade value and trade routes in Dev Diary number 127, and this should be the big one. Now, for a little bit of backstory here, trade routes and trade value have been a feature in various Paradox games for quite some time. Victoria 2 and Europa Universalis 4 definitely spring to mind, as well as a little bit of Hearts of Iron 4. However, now finally in 2.2 Le Guin, we will get this in Stellaris as well. Now, a quick note as well, this will only be describing any sort of internal trade within your empire. If you've ever played any of EU4, that you know that all trade basically goes from a hub to another hub and then back towards your capital. This is very similar in this perspective, although the trade hubs are not controlled by multiple parties at the same time. So for instance, there's no North Sea trade hub or anything like that. No, they're all internal. There will be some trade-related items as well as potential trade routes in the future when it comes to other empires, but that is still open and to be discussed, and we will see how that is going to pan out. So without further ado, let's dive into Dev Diary 127, trade value and trade routes, and I'm so looking forward to this. So first of all, we're going to need to define what trade actually consists of. What is actually being traded? Now, in the game, you will have such resources like the rare motes, we will have energy, minerals, trade goods, and whatnot. However, none of these are actually being traded unless it's on the overall trade market. Now, what you're going to be trading is actually trade value, which is then immediately turned into energy, which you can then go towards the market and buy resources of. Basically, what you want to think of here is that you are doing things like taxation or representation on your civilian economy, something you couldn't do before, which is a very interesting way of handling the mechanic of trade itself. Now, where does trade actually get generated? Well, it gets generated from pops and pop jobs. So certain jobs and certain pops will generate different types of trade value. And let's say you have a higher liver standing pops, let's say they live in really advanced housing and whatnot, they will generate higher trade value and whatnot. And this all goes into a giant pool onto the planet and basically say, hey, this is how much trade value this planet is generating. Now, if this planet is not your capital, it means that the trade needs to be moved to said capital. Though there's a little bit of discussion going on right now with the devs thinking about maybe generating a secondary location to hub your trade into without it needing to go to your capital. However, as of right now, every single trade route will need to end up within your capital, and this is how that is going to work. You will need a certain type of starbase, so a upgraded starbase at a location to send your materials to. So in the range of that system to collect said trade value. So if you have a standard starbase, it can only collect inside the system. However, you can add trade hub modules to those particular stations, which extends the collection range, similar to how sensors work. So let's say that you have a sector somewhere, and in that sector there's 5 or 6 planets. However, you can build a singular starbase within the core of that sector, which then is in range of those planets, so that your tax collectors and your tariff guys can go towards those planets and then collect all that trade value into that single station. Now, what needs to be done there is you will need to move that material towards your capital. The problem there is your trade lanes can only be so long. Let's say hypothetically, we don't know what it is at the moment, but hypothetically, let's say it can be 6. There will most likely be things in the tradition trees, within the species edicts, or maybe even ethics, or who knows, technology and whatnot to extend all of these. But hypothetically, let's say it's this. This means that within 6 jumps, you will need to create another station to collect more material and then move another starbase, move another trade lane from that starbase back towards your capital. Let's say it's 12 jumps away. However, let's say you have your core you basically have 5 star bases. Now, 2 of those star bases can collect all their material or their trade value into a single one, and then move it from that single one towards your capital. What that basically means is that everything gets added up at that single location and then moved over towards the capital to be turned into energy or whatever resource it's going to be. So right now the trade value is turned into energy at 1 to 1. So basically this is something that basically means the more trade if you have trade that it's 51, it's going to turn into 51 energy. Anyway, regarding these trade routes, what it means is that if you're in a strategic location and you want to make sure that the enemy does not jump in and say, hey, this system is where all their trade routes are jumping through, make sure it doesn't get captured in any way, because then you lose all that trade value. Which means that generating a lot of trade in the core of your empire or far behind your lines is really important to keep your front line and keeping your front lines open with other resources. Maybe things like production or food and whatnot, but keep all your population far away from that. So yeah, once the trade value is sent to your capital system, it gets generated into energy. But like I mentioned, the starbase needs to be connected to the capital through a trade route. So the trade routes themselves, like I already mentioned, there's quite a lot of material that needs to be moved from A to B. So yeah, the example that is given here is already being done, and there's also some piracy risk there, which we will go into as well. There is going to be a special map mode for that as well to visualize all trade route stuff and basically how things are going to go. I hope that we're going to see a lot of stuff in terms of being able to see enemy empires as trade routes as well, just to be able to plan out strategic decisions a little bit better when it comes to going onto the offensive and crippling the enemy economy. Now, piracy is something that's going to be reworked yet again. It's being reworked for the 3rd time now. The first time they just spawned in random systems. Then they, I believe, spawn in systems that have higher piracy risk. Now what's going to happen is that piracy will automatically occur on any trade routes. So the more trade is being done, the more potential piracy there is being handled there, and it will bleed off your resources, which is obviously an issue. However, you can upgrade your star bases by adding modules that in the past would be considered a little bit useless. Things like the strike craft hangars, the missile bays, and whatnot. So all that stuff will decrease the amount of piracy risk there is. And on top of that, you will be able to send out fleets on patrol routes between 2 systems. So you can attach a patrol fleet to your trade route, and it will then move back and forward to remove all piracy, which is rather cool. When it comes to pirates themselves, in the past they would spawn in empty systems. Now they will spawn in systems that are heavily traded upon, or where there's a lot of piracy going on from a modifier point of view. Now, the longer the route, the more piracy there is, so that is kind of important. Does this right now that we're going to be seeing any sort of plundering of trade routes with the barbaric despoiler trait? No, not as of right now. That's something that is currently in the pipeline apparently, but it's something that I would really like to see, because being able to, it's so much better than to go to an enemy planet and be like, oh hey, that's a nice pop, and we'll take it back to our world to do whatever with, or in the new system maybe sell on towards the slave market, but instead being able to, capture resources off of an enemy trade route would be kind of nice, and it could be incredibly annoying as well towards an enemy empire without them being able to declare war to you, like a soft war, basically. Anyway, military fleets will be patrolling between routes on star bases, so that is something that is going to happen as well, which is rather exciting. So we'll see whether or not that is going to be something that is going to be a major game changer or not. But yeah, so far, trade routes look really, really good. Like I mentioned, all of this stuff is all internally to your empire. There is no stuff regarding trading with other empires just yet, so that's something that is rather important. Also, certain ship types are going to be modified once again to be better when it comes to doing patrol routes and whatnot, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to attach gigantic fleets to this because your economy would completely bleed dry. And the good thing is, any fleet that goes onto patrol routes will also slowly over time gain experience, which means that you will have veterancy bonus on any sort of ships that are, going on patrol routes, and the same thing for the admirals as well. So this is really a way of fleshing out a lot of the systems that are currently within the game, and I'm really looking forward to that. Next week, we're going to be talking about something that also lies very, very dear to me. That's decisions, as well as the standard decision related stuff, as well as planetary bombardment, because planetary bombardment previously, obviously it destroyed tiles and buildings on that tiles, and with the new planetary system, that's going to be completely and totally overhauled, which is rather exciting as well. If you got any comments regarding trade routes, please put them in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to see more of these Dev Diaries, feel free to give it a like and or subscribe. But in the meantime, we're going to go wrapping it up here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take a good care of yourselves and, as always, each other.